So when you put that in the text, and that gives you next week.
So I got mine 14 times. Oh, it says join.
Yes. Quadruple authentication.
Quadruple. Oh, yes, that's okay. I'm good.
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
just-
Was Tom coming or no?
No.
Okay.
He definitely emailed me for him.
And did you?
Oh, we're live.
We're live, yep. Whatever
All
you're
right,
ready.
okay. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have no requests to speak at open forum, so we will start with presentations, smart schools.
Sure. And we were originally scheduled to have our fifth graders here to do kind of a gallery walk with us. And that's been rescheduled for Tuesday, April 11th. So they'll be here next month. So I'll start off with a couple presentations. Is the public hearing for the Smart Schools project. And I'll just kind of quickly skim through this. It's been posted on the website under I created a Smart Schools tab that has the summary and it has the slideshow. And we talked about it last month and it's been posted for 30 days for public comment. And just to kind of remind people, the Smart Schools Bond Act was passed back in 2014-15 and allowed for security, hardware, softwares, upgrades for school districts. And there was a total allocation of $2 billion that was set aside for this. And again, it was meant for educational technologies and infrastructures for school districts throughout the state. So the primary applications, right? Construct or enhance, modernize educational facilities from pre-K through 12th grade instructional spaces. Install high-speed broadband or wireless internet connectivity for schools and communities. Acquire learning technologies or equipment and facilities. Install high-tech security features in school buildings on campuses, including but not limited to. Here's your cameras and your emergency notification systems, physical access to controls. And that's really the focus of what we've done in phase one of the project that we did for $1 million or so with the that we've done with secure vestibules and entrances and badge access points. And we'll do something very similar with notification systems in our schools. This project focus area is we've talked about in the junior, senior high school and elementary school. Broken out will be junior, senior high school will be 67 18-inch classroom clocks and speaker combination packages. There'll be 11 28-inch hallway IP clocks and speakers. There'll be 12 IP signboards. And then the InfoCast licensing that we'll have for a 3-year maintenance piece. And then in the elementary school, a very similar structure to that, except there's 73 18-inch classroom clock speakers displays. There are 6 28-inch ones for the hallways, 9 IP sideboards, and then 100 license ends. To be able to do the infrastructure is already done back when we did an E-rate project to run Cat 6 wire to all of these ports, we'll say, where the end of the licenses will be, or what the licenses will be. So all of that infrastructure is done and completed. And this is really almost like a plug and play. Clock comes off, right? The wires drop down on the ceiling, and then the clock is in a sense plugged in. And with that clock, it allows for speaker functions, easier accessibility for communication within individual classrooms, groups of classrooms, hallways, common areas, and at the same time, updates our antiquated PA systems in all of our buildings.
Do the licenses come in blocks of 100?
Yeah, they do. In this case, I think you can get them in blocks of 50, but the initial one is 100 for like what we have. The timeline and the process, just to recap this, is present to the Board of Education to seek the preliminary approval, which we did in February 14th. We posted on the district's website for the public comment period, for the 30-day public comment period, same time. Public hearing originally scheduled for the 14th, rescheduled for tonight. Once we have a approval, we then, Mrs. Warner and myself can work on submitting this to state ed for facilities planning, just like it was a capital project. The turnaround time for state ed right now is about 12 to 14 months to approve smart schools projects. And the total cost of this initiative, if you will, is $370,649. We still currently have $312,000 available for smart schools. So there's still a remaining balance of $58,000. We're actually going to submit to the Smart Schools Planning Board to see if we can do all of it, see if there's money still remaining out there post our allocation that wasn't used. And if not, that's where we can use our 100K outlay project next year to tie that into that as well too. And again, that's dollar for dollar, right? We pay for it up front and then get reimbursed for it before. So we used the previous $1 million with the phase one of it, and there was still remaining $312,000 to be able to leverage that for this initiative here. Any questions? All right, thank you.
Okay. Next, we have the budget presentation.
Yep. So a quick look at the first draft, if you will. So we won't have true numbers for our revenue until the governor has the budget April 1st. But historically, it doesn't change too much. There are some things on the agenda that could impact the state aid a little bit. Nothing substantial. Things like the high impact tutoring, which originally when it was set out as a set aside. That was the 10% of your state aid increase to fully fund the foundation aid. So the 10% for us was around like $262,000. The governor wants it as set aside. The Assembly and the Senate do not want it as a set aside, so it'll see where they come up with negotiation for that. It might just be part of the foundation aid package. So there's a couple other things in there. But again, first look at it, where we're at. Is I always like to start with where do we start making our decisions from, right? We start making our decisions on our focus areas within the district, really primarily looking at our strategic plan, making sure that from staffing models to allocations, right, support the initiatives that we have identified. So, for example, our focus on student supports, our emphasis on culture, climate, and positivity, our commitment to working in professional learning communities, our collaborative teams, and then our commitment to community partnerships and enrichment. So you look at the photo of our FFA leadership, our officers, they spoke here. I thought that was very relevant to put in here to represent them here at our board meeting too. Yeah, just the other month they were standing right here doing their presentations. And it actually was really good if you remember. It was awesome.
It was great.
They did a great job.
Yeah.
Great group of kids. And again, just focusing on some of our student supports, attention to detail in the classrooms, from additional help to our retention, our commitment to retention of staff and our partnerships. They go hand in hand with the student supports and our partnerships. For example, SUNY went out. I'll talk a little bit later. Our commitment to the culture and climate and the positivity piece. Just go back to the initiative that Ms. McNamara and Ms. Rogan are doing with our juniors and seniors, junior high school with our Warriors of the Month, recognizing them by grade level. And then I just have to take a quick little stop here to highlight a couple different things. I'll just start with this one here, just because I think this is awesome. This is Mr. Wood at a equality ceremony for the elementary.
Was that in lieu of the head shaving? That's what they chose?
They chose for me to jump in they wanted Mr. Wood to do a cannonball. I don't know who came up with it, but
So he was good sport. Thank you very much, Mr. Wood. The things in the life of a principal, you just never know. And next, I'd love to be able to transition into Mr. Hanson. Right? We can't leave him out. So I'll make sure we share a little bit of love for Mr. Hanson. One, Not too. Not too.
You had a gap in your pocket.
It wasn't really high, it's like just liquid. I lucked out.
Yeah.
Again, you gotta have a little light, you gotta have some fun. Oops, sorry. I did the first bunch again. Again, our commitment to collaborative teams, whether it would be our new teacher orientation that we do each month, we have new teacher orientation meetings each month, focus on different things, to our cafeteria staff and our buildings and grounds, right, that do so much for us. Again, our commitment to our collective teams. And just last one of the fourth area is our commitment to community partnerships and enrichment. We have worked more with Amphenol this year than we have in a number of years, which is great. Taking kids there, having a student do an internship there most recently. So some pretty cool things. And if you didn't get an opportunity with our pipeline partnership with SUNY Oneonta, that Mr. Stenta is really headed up with this. A couple weeks ago, we had News Channel 34 and SUNY Oneonta there, and who else am I forgetting? Daily Star. What was it? News Fox 40 here to highlight the program, and it's been a great initiative, a great partnership. Mr. Stenta's working on it for a couple of years, but just not to go off on a piece of this, but the idea is we would host juniors, right, in the educational field. And those juniors during their third year would then love the district so much they want a student teacher, right? And then love their experience so much, right, with the district and their cooperative teachers that they would like to teach here, right? And we have actually seen some success with this without going off too much with this. We'll save this for another presentation. But we have had that cycle where we have Black students, we have student teachers, we have long-term stuff, and we have permanent teachers in place right now. Some of the idea is to not only help the teacher shortage, right, but also to build a model for other SUNY schools and other educational schools, right, with similar types of initiatives for local districts. And we, Tony and I have joked around a few times is we may never have to post for another elementary job again because of this pipeline. It's been a great partnership. So our commitment to partnerships and enrichment, and appreciate Mrs. Finch being here that morning with us and spending time with the whole crew and the president. And yep, it was a lot of fun. We had the president, Dr. I'm going to say Cartier, right? Cartier. And Dr. Davies, the Dean of Education here. A couple of the professors. Mr. Stenta did a brilliant job putting on a tour and a schedule for the rest of that day. So it was a nice piece. So again, aligning the resources to be able to support some of our focus areas. Now we'll get into some numbers. So on the left-hand side, you'll see the current state aid allocations. On the right-hand side, you will see the projected state aid. Again, these are projections. Again, we don't have a governor's budget yet. One of the big things that I'll just point out is the increase in foundation aid. I have a minute and 29 seconds, or an hour and 29 seconds to finish this up. Promise I won't go that long. This is the third year of the foundation aid being fully implemented. If you remember back, just to kind of give a recap, Sidney Central School District, among other school districts, were not fully funded. We were at 83% funding of foundation aid, and the state has been committed into making sure that foundation aid is fully funded. And that is on the governor's proposal. The assembly is supporting of it. The Senate and the assembly are both supporting of the third year fully funding it. So the third year, this current year, we will see an increase in foundation of about $2.7 million, right? And that makes us whole, which is awesome. That's where you really see the increase, if you will. So our BOCES aid stays about the same. Our high tax aid doesn't change. Hardware, software. They'll change a little bit based on your usage, right? Those are aids that you maximize, because if you don't use them, then they adjust them the next year and they go down. So you want to make sure you use those. Transportation aid increases a little bit, and that increases because we bought 2 buses last year, and in this you'll see 2 more buses, 2 30-passenger buses, so that's why it's up just a little bit. Our building aid should go up a little bit because we'll close out a project So we should see an increase of that throughout the year, but right now this is where it's at because the project is not closed out yet. And then other, which is some of your miscellaneous revenues, for example, like the Masonville lease rent, and then like foster care placement revenue that you get. So that's really where the increase is. So taking a look at all of the revenue, we're looking at the state aid of about 23 million. Our local tax share, which we're going to keep the same, it's $6,130,917. Not recommending a tax increase at this time because we had such a substantial increase in foundation aid. That, again, I know we've talked about this at the board level, right? We can't keep it 0%. This is a nice push this year with the foundation aid increase, but it's not something that probably sustainable once we move forward after this budget. So something we think about is again, future budgets. Our tax cap was 2% this year, so you could have raised it 2%. 1% just is a general rule raises taxes and increases revenue about $60,000. So 2% would generate about an extra $120,000 just as a frame of reference. Miscellaneous revenue, appropriation for debt service is $150,000. And again, appropriation for debt service is if, for example, your mortgage payment, right, or in our case, our debt service is different than our building aid, you can offset that. And we're putting that in there again this year for if there are any situations like that. If the project doesn't get closed out and we have to close that gap a little bit, we don't really think that we'll be able to do that, but that's where that money can be used for. And the appropriation of fund balance of $1 million, we trimmed that back just a little bit. Last year, or the current budget, we appropriated 1.25 million. We backed that because of the increase in revenue to put it back to about $1 million. So those are the forms of the revenue. Taking a look at the expense, and again, we're just at the categorical level right now. You're comparing to like the 1,000, so your general support lines is up about $1 million. Your total instruction line, again, is up a little bit more than $1 million. People transportation is only up just a little bit. Our community service, again, this is our recreation. This is not much of a budget, but it's a separate categorical expense. And then what I call like your employee benefits and your debt service payments of 9.3 million. So if you're looking budget to budget comparisons, this current budget is $28,875,480. This one that we're projecting right now for expenses to be $31,304,850. And again, the difference between that is really the increase in state aid from the foundation, about that 2.6 million. And again, just to break them up is some of the categories or some of the things within those categorical lines within the 1,000s. Some of these are BOCES increases. I know we talked about having the BOCES come out and present their capital and their administrative budget, I believe at the April meeting. To take a look at this, I think they're around like 5% increase, if I'm not mistaken, 5.5 or so. Next one is your instruction line. This is the big one that deals with call it employees, teachers aides. This is the big one. All of your interscholastic sports, health services, program students with disabilities. This is the large one. Transportation. Again, this is all district transportation needs, your garage needs, and then we're proposing 2 30-passenger buses. We did 2 last year. We did a 35-passenger and then a 24-passenger with a handicap lift. We have received 1. We have not received the other. That's why we're putting it in here now because it takes a year to get them. I believe we have a delivery date is April. I can't remember the date, but call it early April for end April. I'm sorry, for the second bus. So we're proposing building 2 in. They're about $87,000 a piece, so you see a line item in there for two buses at $87,000 a piece for that.
Does it normally take that long?
Post-COVID, yes. Yep. If you remember in an update, I've been talking about ordering 2 vans to cycle out the caravans, and they will likely take a year as well too. And the buses, they're only allocated a certain amount of chassis, right? I've learned a lot about buses, right? They're only allocated a certain amount of chassis, so that's all you get. So once the chassis is built, right, then they can start to put the bus frame on. So they're different assembly lines, if you will, that do that. So yeah, it takes a long time. And then like with the Toyota Sienna vans too, right? Remember, it's state contract, right? So we're buying Toyota Sienna vans pretty nice hybrid ones for $38,600 a piece. Where if you go to a lot right now and try to buy that, right, you're talking about $50,000. So you don't always get first preference off a state contract, if you know what I'm talking about. So yeah, yep. So you're really buying them a year out, but you're building them into this budget. So a year ago, we were talking about those two buses. We got one in October. When did we get the first one? Do you remember, Ms. Warner? When did we get the first van? Was it November? Right, and then, so you think about, November of next year, right, maybe, but they're talking about closer to a year with that. So it'll be interesting, right?
Is that paid in full up front?
No, you pay on delivery.
Okay.
No, no. So once they deliver on campus, right, then we issue them. Yep. We're nice, but we're not that nice. And then employee benefits. This is your teacher retirement system, your employee retirement system, all of your benefits in your debt service. So $9,395,580. And again, just comparing dollar for dollar change wise, for the general supports 1000s in the 2000s, this is really where you're going to see the increase of 2.4 million. And that's really your increase in foundation aid. So that number kind of resonates if you see that increase. And then comparing just on the left-hand side, you got your revenue. So right now we have a balanced number. This number is going to be close. But again, once we get the final numbers of revenue from the state, we'll have to go back through and tweak and adjust these things, but it's probably going to be pretty close to that dollar number, if you will. Give or take, again, I don't know, a couple $100,000 one way or another, maybe. So that'll be in the ballpark of. In next steps is Mr. Moore and I will spend a considerable amount of time after April 1 over spring break, really cranking out what that number is, fine tuning it, and then we will present to you April 11th for the adoption of the budget. And then you'll have the line by line expenses that'll go into the budget binders, and then we'll do the public hearing at the May meeting. Any questions?
Actually, two.
Sure.
The first one, the foundation aid, and I think we've talked about this before, but getting us to 100% of the foundation aid where we, should have been.
Yep.
That's not any kind of program. That's an ongoing thing that should, now that we're at 100%, should continue for the foreseeable future.
Should
I know. I
should.
tried to use flower
They should.
language there.
For now.
Anything can be.
They have frozen foundation aid before. So years back, and yes, you would think that that's pretty stable. There was talk about 3% of the districts that have already been fully funded receiving 3% increase in foundation aid. So yes, foundation aid is fairly stable.
Do they normally do like inflationary increases year to year? I mean, once we're at 100%, can that still go up with inflationary increases from year to year in the budget?
Yeah, and that was a conversation of, so you take the foundation aid of 16 million to tack on 3%. Like, let's say we were fully funded, right? We would have had a 3% increase from last year. So yeah, I would say that it's fairly stable, fairly predictable. I suppose that we get into a recession, they could freeze it, right? Depending on where the state is, but yeah, pretty stable, and you can count on that.
Okay. Yeah. And then the other question I had was, with the 0% increase, some of the questions we get is how many properties came off the tax roll, and then, the tax levy still being spread to whatever tax-paying properties are left.
Yep.
So are there any areas in the district that are going to see an increase? I'm pretty sure Masonville always sees an increase. Yeah.
Yeah, it depends on what happens to some of the homes downtown, right? If they take them off, they take them off the tax rolls. Some are already off the tax rolls.
Mm-hmm.
And that gets redistributed. The same amount of money's got to be collected. It just gets redistributed. I remember talking to a community member, actually a retired teacher, a few years ago. They said it was 0% that the school board went out at, and she said, "Well, my taxes went up almost 10%. That the school raised taxes." But no, the school didn't raise taxes. You still have to collect the same amount of money. It just gets distributed differently, right? So to answer your question, no, I don't know where they would fall in, like what areas would increase.
And that's what I was wondering as we had that information, because sometimes, like you say,
With
you
the
get questions
reassessments,
on
yeah.
if somebody sees an increase, if somebody sees a decrease. So it'd be
Usually-
interesting to see.
Send out like a postcard that explains it to
Yep.
appropriation and what the assessed value is and how that affects, or we do, we still do
Yep,
that,
we,
right?
we actually just got the budget postcard today, right, to fill out. And then you'll get that where you see the assessed evaluation. It also depends on the villages or the towns, right, if they do a reassessment, right, and what that reassessment will shake out as. But yeah, no, I don't know that yet. But yeah, that's all, it'll be in the budget newsletter, the budget postcard.
Okay, then I remember talking about it last year.
Yep.
And hopefully it gets kind of stabilized here eventually, when they clean up a lot of the flood houses and stuff.
Yeah. Yep. And remember, we're like City Central School District is very much dependent on state aid, right? So we don't really want the state to hold state aid, right? We are 72% funded on state aid. So that is something that we have to have. So yeah, fairly predictable, right? Like what you talked about with the foundation, it's a stable aid number. Yep.
All right, thank you.
Good question.
Any other questions, Mr. Bullock? Okay. Oh,
Couple of things, I'll keep going.
Go ahead, keep going. Just
I'll keep it
keep
going.
going.
I do just want to thank Amanda Finch for helping us with the partnership with SUNY Oneonta. And that partnership has not only led into the teacher pipeline partnership, but also Mrs. Finch allowed us to be part of Dr. Paul Hernandez's work. She shared something with me, if you remember back in August, Amanda shared with me a TED Talk that kind of resonated with her and some of the work that SUNY Oneonta is doing, and we opened up the school year with it. And his work is a book that he's written, Real Talk, a couple different editions of it. And it's just like that, it's real talk with kids and real talk with staff. And just a remarkable human being, right, that believes in education and believes in relationships. And we had an opportunity to take a team of people to SUNY Oneonta last week. And again, thank you to Amanda who allowed us to be able to do this. We just talked about real talk, right? And the sense of belonging in a school, whether you're a staff member or whether you're a student. And hopefully that'll drive some of our work when we go through our strategic planning and into next year. So great opportunity. We took a good team there, spent a couple of hours with him. And I just want to thank you for that opportunity to be able to do that. And it takes a team, right? I mean, it's a partnership, and it's really proven to be quite successful. So thank you very much. Another quick piece is you'll see on here is the RFP, the request for proposal for universal pre-K. And again, I just wanted to highlight the difference between the last contract that we did and versus this award is just the length of the annual renewal that we could do. The first go around was 2 years. It was a 1-year contract with the ability to renew 1 year. This one is a 1-year contract with the ability to renew 4 additional years for a total of 5, but it would be done annually, hopefully in February of each year. And it will be come to the board from that. Tomorrow we have in March, we begin the strategic planning process. Just make sure that we are transparent with that as we send it out to our community and our staff. There's thoughts coming into that thought exchange. And then our 3 days of work that we'll do. And I appreciate if you saw the date change. I explained a little bit. If you didn't see the invite, the superintendent, Dr. Kevin McGowan, who is the superintendent of Brighton, was not only selected as New York State Superintendent, but also was selected as the National Superintendent of the Year, who will be facilitating this. So his schedule's changed a little bit. He has to speak in California those days, so we shifted that. So I'm honored to be able to work with him. But also thank you very much for your flexibility to be able to accommodate that schedule. And that's that Monday the 17th and 18th, I believe is what those dates are. And tomorrow we have a conference day. Again, talking about partnerships, we have 5 Cullman staff members that will be joining us for our conference day. Tomorrow we have a group called APL Strategies coming into this, and really what we're going to revisit is different types of instructional strategies for student time on task, student behavior, student performance, classroom organization, motivation of students, and overall classroom management. So we're excited about that for tomorrow, and we're also including our instructional support staff. We do mid-year check-ins for our instructional support staff. And one thing that we've heard last year and this year is opportunities for professional development, opportunities for professional growth, different types of trainings. So our instructional support staff that work in classrooms or work with kids will be joining us as well. So we're excited for that. And I just want to show one thing that I think is super cool as part of our Farm to School initiative. Just want to thank Marissa Schlu. And this is last week kicked off the planting season. And I just think it's awesome to see little kids do this kind of stuff. It's really neat. So they planted cabbage and onion seeds with Mrs. Finch's kindergarten class and Mr. Waltz's 8th grade agriculture class. And then this coming week, they're going to be working with bunching onions and celeries. So I just wanted to show you a couple cool photos. And this is actually over here in the high school in the attached greenhouse of the science classes.
That's what I will
I think he likes it. But again, I just wanted to show you that because I thought that was pretty cool. And just a quick update on spring sports. So currently right now for JV and varsity registration numbers, although we got 7 more students that signed up today to participate, so these are minus the 7. We have 14 students for varsity baseball, 14 for JV baseball, 16 for varsity softball, 12 for JV softball, 29 for boys track, 23 for girls track, and 14 for varsity tennis, but 7 more signed up. So our participation numbers from the fall, from the winter from now are great.
That big for tennis? It seems like a lot.
Yeah, we're working on that for tennis. The tennis courts will be done in the summer, mildly unplayable. I know Mr. Carr's working with some other local schools that have tennis courts to be able to hold matches there. Be able to practice there, but probably not much.
Well, they have to replay the point every time it hits a crack.
Yeah, there's some cracks. There's some cracks.
Yeah.
What's that? And maybe we'll borrow their tennis courts. And Mr. Carl is working out with some local schools to be able to use their stuff. Yeah. And the last thing I want to just talk about is we had to use an emergency day on Tuesday. We still have 2 emergency days left, so we're in pretty good shape right now. If we use one more, then we will send out information about remote learning. We would not go to a remote learning day until we've used both. We will use both days before we go to a remote learning day. There are some districts that are choosing a little bit different methodology with it, where they're keeping one. I don't know if I agree with that. Is you might as well use your emergency days. That's what they're there for. And then you go to remote learning if you have to. I'd love to say we're in great shape, but if you remember last April where we had 44 inches of snow in the first week of April, I don't want to say anything, but
I won't say it.
so I'm not going to say that we're in good shape right now, but we have 2 left, and we will use those before we go to a remote learning day. We have the information ready to send out if we have to do that, but right now we're not going to create any extra stress on anybody, right? We're just going to go with it. We have 2 days left in the middle of March, and we'll go with that. So we have 2 emergency days left, and somebody has.
As 2 people from a utility company, we definitely remember the storm last night.
I bet that. But there's always questions like, how many do we have left? How many do we have left? So there are 2 left. And then if, let's say we don't have to use those, then we have to give those days back. The first day being the Friday before Memorial Day, and the second day would be another selection. That's all I got.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Right. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to approve the minutes from the regular Board of Education meeting held on February 14th, 2023.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to approve the personnel consent agenda as presented.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to approve the Smart Schools Investment Plan as presented.
So moved. Second.
Any additional discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to accept the donation of $2,711 from the Sidney Baseball Bullpen Club to the Sidney Central School baseball and softball programs.
So moved. Second.
Discussion?
This is a donation to add a second batting range in the middle school gym for the baseball and softball programs. There's already one there. And then our maintenance crew will install them, and that's the cost of the batting cage.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to commit to the purchase of technology equipment for the instructional technology service from Broome Tioga BOCES as presented.
So moved. Second.
Discussion?
This is what they call an IPA. So you're purchasing technology equipment more cost effectively. Instead of having one lump sum that breaks it up over the course of 5 years, you spread your A payment out over the course of the 5 years. It's a good way to purchase things like that. I say things like that, it's 350 Chromebooks, a bundle for the second grade, and 250 to replace aging ones now, and they'll all be transitioned over to touchscreens. So this is a good way to purchase items like this.
Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to approve the UPK contract with Coleman Child Development Center as presented.
So moved. Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools to approve the legal notice for public hearing, budget vote, and election to be held on May 16th, 2023.
So moved. Second.
Discussion?
The thing I would just note is the location. We're going to try a different location. We used the cafeteria the last couple of years, and it's a lot to displace that many students during the day. So I told Ms. McNamara that I'd come up with a better solution to that. When I was principal, we did the same thing. It is a lot to displace that cafeteria during the day for kids. We're actually going to try a different spot. If you notice in there, if you haven't read the legal notice, we're going to do it right over here where we collect taxes and set up parking spots right outside the district office room. We communicated door 11. It's where people come pay their taxes. Try to use that more of a district office functionality, if you will. So make an inviting come in to be able to register. We're going to the conference room right here to be able to vote. Make a nice little spot for it in and out, and it really won't disrupt anything that goes on during the school day. So
all the people who are still going to try to get into the cafeteria though.
yeah, we're gonna have some pretty good signage, and I'll be out there directing traffic. They will, and it was a good spot. I mean, there's no question about it. Like, it's super convenient, nice, but it is a massive disruption to feed 500 kids in other places. It's just a lot. So, and it's kind of steady flow. It's not like there's 50 people that come vote at one time, because I think we only average around 150, 60 people total all day long. So it's kind of just try not to disrupt the day, right, and make it still inviting and attractive. But yeah, we'll be directing traffic because we get signage.
How many free lunches?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Board member comments?
Just thank you for bringing a team of people to meet Paul Hernandez, and he was really impressed with everyone that came, and is looking forward to hearing follow-up. He gave them tasks.
We have our homework.
Yeah, so he's looking forward to hearing about it. So thank you all for taking the time to come.
Yeah, thanks. And we're gonna meet with them again, maybe in like October-ish, September, October. Yep. So.
The badminton and ping pong teams, one section.
Did they? I hear sirens.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. And I got a mailing because of my address, the way it appears. We come out of the Unadilla post office as rural. Unitigo is doing a UPK, and the mailer was very similar to ours. So I was like, somebody copy somebody. Do you know how they're doing their program?
I don't. So I'm not familiar with it. No.
Okay. I just wondered if they were doing it in-house or if they were using an outsourced partner also.
I don't know what they finally decide. I know Dr. Richards is part of the Coleman board. So I don't know if there's going to be a community partnership. New York State with groups that are creating or expanding UPK programs is really pushing community partnerships, but I'm not sure what that meant.
And I don't think they have as many spots available as we do. I think they only have like 36 or something like that. So it was just interesting, and I said, well, we're talking about the same thing, obviously, every year.
And they're really pushing for 4-year-old programs. The state is, if you don't have one, right, really look at trying to either have a community partnership or start one. So we just happened to make some really good choices, right? A couple of years ago, making this. That was
Well, and having that partner right in the village is nice.
absolutely it is. Yeah,
Yeah, it's a big facility.
it is.
Good, anything else? All right, then motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Nice
you.
seeing you next month. Thank you for coming with the date change too.
Yes, I appreciate your flexibility with that
Nancy.
because I can control the weather.
Yeah, you can try.
I can try.
Yeah.
Just making sure this is okay.
Yeah.
So he was really positively impressed by us.
Yeah. He was. He said